In this lecture, I would like to discuss fascism and conservatism, specifically how these are variations of socialism. So, a lot of people on the left will call people on the right fascists. But what do they mean by this? Well, they think that being a conservative fascist means that you're ultra nationalistic and that you support corporations. And corporations take more of a priority in society than do individual people. So let's begin by defining fascism. Fascism, as Mussolini described it, is a partnership of private and public entities, or a corporation, a cooperation, no pun intended. But this becomes what's known as corporatism or crony capitalism, where you have the benefits of free enterprise market capitalism combined with state regulations and statism to keep out competitors. So this becomes where corporations essentially run the economy. But I want to give you an economic analysis of fascism, and this will help elaborate how fascism is a variation of socialism. So, under fascism, it originated in about 1920, 1919, 1921 with Benito Mussolini in Italy. And then Adolf Hitler also was considered a fascist. But Mussolini and Hitler were students of Marxism. However, they disagreed with communism, where communism was international socialism. The fascists of Germany and Italy wanted national socialism. This is the nationalistic ideology combined with the socialist ideology, creating National Socialism or Nazism, Nazi Party, National Socialist. That's what it stands for. So, fascism essentially says we're going to keep private property, okay? But what they also want is the value of this private property to be redistributed for society or the collective or the state. So let's just write collective here. Okay. So essentially what you have is private property in name only. It's nominal private property, but the decision makers are still the centralized state. The decision maker at the head, whether it be Mussolini, Hitler, or whoever fascist you have in a society, it's very authoritarian. They're going to tell you what you're going to produce, at what prices, how much of it you're going to produce, and who you're able to sell it to. So it's still a hyper-regulated society. It's still a society of authoritarianism, of not at all a free market. Okay, so this is a very important distinction because a lot of times leftists, they think that the problem is billionaires. They think that the problem are corporations, are lobbyists. But you have to understand that crony capitalism or corporatism or fascism, what you want to call it, runs by the rules created by politicians, by the statists in DC or in the capitals who write the laws that keep competitors out. And obviously, this is where the partnership begins, and it flourishes in society by regulationisms. So conservatives, for example, who are a variation of socialists, are anti-dynamic processes that come into society, ingenue new creations, bring to the market new ideas, new contracts, new prosperity for productive workers and such. And essentially what they're doing is they're trying to maintain their, property ownership or their statuses of wealth and capital via regulatory markets. Okay, so to digress a little bit, conservatives are anti-taxation because they think this is too progressive of a policy for redistribution. But the forms of redistribution that they do support are in policy controls, price controls, and behavioral controls. And that goes more into the cultural aspects of what it means to be a conservative rather than, your quote unquote progressive. But going to the history again quickly, this is a very interesting point. I think it's worth noting that after World War I in the Reichstag assembly, the fascists were seated next to the conservatives on the right side of the assembly, the Reichstag assembly. So on the left you had, your communists, your socialists, and on the right you had your fascists and conservatives. So a lot of people think that, therefore fascists are not left-wing and not socialists, but they are very much socialists, and they were seated next to conservatives, who I'm also saying are socialists. Conservatives are socialists. Donald Trump is a socialist. What we have in the United States is a welfare warfare state. The whole 20th century, call it the progressive era, but the form of socialism that we have is this hyper-regulated form of statism, which is fascism. So what we have is a fascist society. And I think my point with this is that leftists like to say that it's a fascist society without understanding the economics behind it, and they think the problem is just the corporations. But I'm saying, if you didn't have the state that put all these regulations that bolster and support the corporations, then the corporations wouldn't be this big and powerful. I saw a bumper sticker today that said, the only minority we need to worry about are the billionaires. And it's like, are you dumb? Okay, we should be celebrating billionaires, but obviously, when you're a billionaire by being a central banker with the snap of your fingers, printing money, creating inflation, devaluing other people's purchasing power, that's no good. Or if you're a billionaire from a military industrial complex, creating guns and wars and butchering people around the world, that's not good. That's not creating any value. But if you create goods and services in a market economy, you have to produce it for consumers, where consumers have sovereignty. But in a fascist society where you basically regulate out this idea of who's going to produce what and who's going to be able to benefit from it, then consumers don't have sovereignty. Moreover, they face higher prices, and that's when you have this lack of consumer sovereignty, but this fascistic, super regulated market society. And there's a joke that you should go to Argentina where everyone's a millionaire. I mean, maybe in 1920s Weimar, you can say you can go to the Weimar Republic where everyone's a billionaire. So obviously this has to have an important distinction between, nominal money, nominal wealth, how much bills you have, versus real wealth. What can you actually buy? I mean, if you have wheelbarrows of money, millions and billions of dollars, and you're starving and in despair, then obviously it's no good to be a billionaire. But the problem obviously isn't the amount of money you have, it's what you're able to buy. And whether this money is inflationary, creating more wealth, or it's real wealth, and how this money came into existence. So this is a little bit of a digression on money, but yeah, I think these are some important points to note out. So let's discuss a little bit about this history of the 20th century, Germany and Italian variations of fascism, and what happened. Well, what happened was obviously there was warfare in the 20th century. Now, I like to think that World War I had a 20-year recess and then continued into the 1940s, early 1940s. So it was one war, but the idea is that with warfare and quote-unquote national emergency, governments love this, especially authoritarian governments, because it justifies government involvement into the society, into the economy, into bolstering debts, creating more regulations, more control, more social engineering, more conscription. Let's get more people to develop these feelings of honor and glory and fighting the good, just war that is saving our country. Okay, obviously this is not just stupid, but it's also completely against what most civilians want. It's something that comes from the politically connected classes, the politically elite, who make money off a bureaucracy of war. So what happens is you have war, horrible, but after the wars, the regulations, the social controls, they don't go away. They become ingrained as the status quo. Think of the Patriot Act, okay? Think of the withholding tax. When you get a paycheck, the government can withhold it. And these become the ideas of the status quo. And this becomes, this is tradition. This is what we do here. That's conservatism. That's what keeps a form of socialism as a policy and regulation in society. And I think this is a beautiful quote that I would like to read to you. And it's, "From freedom and science came rapid growth and change. From rapid growth and change came insecurity. From insecurity came demands which ended growth and change. And ending growth and change ended science and freedom." And this is from M.C. Wright in Democracy and Progress from 1948, page 81. So what's he saying here? Science and freedom go hand in hand, and they create rapid change and growth. And from this, people become insecure. They're like, oh shit, we're becoming so productive, I'm going to lose my job as someone who creates horse and buggies to the automobile, okay? And from this insecurity, people demanded the end of growth and change. And then ending that led to the end of science and freedom. So I think what's important for us today when we discuss artificial intelligence and what it's going to do for society, first of all, understand that this is a form of science. This is a form of, yes, cultural productivity change. Markets are going to change. This is like super significant in the forms of revolutions for productivity and society. So on one hand, with this science and growth, you have change where people are going to be more productive. Okay, you can go to a dentist, an AI dentist. He's going to be able to, not he, but the thing will be able to clean your teeth, give you what you need, 2 a.m, super cheap, like a vending machine almost type of idea. But what does this mean for the dentists and oral surgeons and teeth cleaning people? Yeah, they're going to have to find something else. That creates insecurity, okay? Think about if AI is able to perform heart surgeries in the future, potentially, or knee surgeries even. Maybe heart surgeries down the line, I don't know. But knee replacements, hip replacements, things like this. This is going to create more productivity. This is going to create, I would say, better standards of living for societies if these services are cheap and widely available. So this is at the same time creating a lot of insecurity where people are like, what are we going to do with jobs and stuff like this? Well, if you didn't have an inflationary environment where people see real wealth and productivity increasing, but at the same time, with the money inflation, prices are going up. And so then they're having to spend more money for the same exact amount of goods. So that's a downward pressure on wealth. If you didn't have that, we'd have more productivity. We'd be much more wealthy and prosperous. Now, as far as jobs, I mean, I think that, in the meantime, there will be job insecurity and stuff like this. But I think in the long run, there's nothing to fear. It's a form of technology. We're going to be wealthier. We're going to be more productive. So I don't think it's, some form of like antichrist global takeover. Obviously, the concern is governments using it to take over. Governments love, national emergencies. We need a war on AI, regulations. Regulations are going to keep certain companies being corporatized, insulated from market competition. Moreover, if the government uses it to control and spy on people, then that's a tough situation to be in. Obviously, I don't want that. But that seems to me like, obviously, the issue then remains the government spying on its people, being anti-science, anti-freedom. that's conservatism policy, okay? That's regulatory policy. That's a form of statism. That's socialism. Socialism is not just public means of ownership over the means of production, but it's institutionalized coercion where you're not free. You're not free to live. You're not free to express yourself, to think differently. Okay, that's why governments want to control you behaviorally. Same thing with socialism. What do you think Nazism and fascism and even communism are about? They're about controlling people's bodies. And how do you best control people's bodies? By controlling their minds. So don't be a free thinker. Just conform, submit, be obedient, and we'll reward you. Obviously, the obedient ones, loyal to the party, are the first ones that are put up against the wall. But yeah, I mean, this is just to say that trying to explain to you a meta-analysis of fascism as a variation of socialism. So that's what I have for you today, something to think about. Triangular interventionism, where a group, a third party, government can determine the buyer and seller, the producer and consumer, how their relationship is allowed to foster via legality, the legal mechanisms. Okay, that's a form of statism, control, and socialism. So embrace the free market, embrace science, embrace change, embrace dynamism, and embrace prosperity. Cheers.